You send a text. Nothing comes back for 20 minutes. And somewhere in your chest, something tightens that has absolutely nothing to do with logic. You know it's probably fine. Your body doesn't care. It reacts like something is actually wrong. That reaction isn't random, and it isn't weakness. Tonight, we're asking where it actually came from, because the answer goes back a lot further than your last relationship, and it explains something almost every human being on Earth quietly deals with. Let's start with a baby. Any baby, in any culture, on any continent. Put that baby down in a room alone, and within moments it cries. Not sometimes, not in certain cultures. Everywhere, every time, as close to a universal human response as psychology has ever documented. A psychiatrist named John Bowlby spent the 1950s and 60s studying exactly this, and built what became known as attachment theory around one core idea. A human infant separated from its caregiver isn't just uncomfortable. Its brain treats the separation as an emergency. Why would a brain do that? Because for almost the entire span of human existence, it genuinely was one. Here's something that makes humans strange compared to almost every other mammal on the planet. Our babies are born catastrophically helpless. A newborn horse stands within an hour. A newborn human can't even hold up its own head for months. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy has spent decades studying why, and her answer reframes the entire question of human loneliness. Human infants, she argues, evolved to require far more than one caregiver. They needed what she calls alloparents, aunts, grandmothers, older siblings, unrelated group members, all sharing the work of keeping one helpless baby alive long enough to grow up. A human child left genuinely alone in the ancestral world wasn't just sad. It was, in almost every case, a death sentence. So the terror of being left alone isn't a personality quirk. It's an alarm system, and alarm systems that fail to go off don't get passed down. The infants who screamed the loudest when abandoned were the ones most likely to get retrieved. The ones who stayed quiet and calm simply didn't survive to have children of their own. Over hundreds of thousands of generations, that filtered into something close to universal, a nervous system that treats aloneness, even now, even when you are a fully grown adult locked safely inside your own house, as a 5-alarm signal that something has gone wrong. But here's where it gets stranger, because this alarm didn't stay confined to childhood, and it didn't stay metaphorical either. In 2003, a researcher named Naomi Eisenberger ran an experiment at UCLA that changed how scientists think about loneliness entirely. She had participants lie in an fMRI scanner while playing a simple ball-tossing game with 2 other players. Except the other players were computer-controlled, and at a certain point, they simply stopped throwing the ball to the participant. No explanation, no insult, just quiet exclusion from a meaningless digital game. The brain scans showed something researchers weren't fully expecting. The same brain region that lights up during actual physical pain, the anterior cingulate cortex, activated during social exclusion almost identically. Being left out of a pointless computer game triggered neural activity that closely resembled getting physically hurt. Eisenberger's conclusion became one of the most cited findings in social neuroscience. Your brain doesn't cleanly separate "I got hurt" from "I got excluded." At a deep enough level, it treats them as versions of the same threat. Think about what that actually means. The ache you feel when you're left out, when a message goes unanswered, when a room goes quiet around you, isn't a metaphor for pain. It is, at the level of your actual brain circuitry, a form of pain, using overlapping machinery your body originally built to protect you from physical injury. That single finding explains a lot about why isolation feels the way it does, but it still leaves an open question. If humans evolved in tight, constant contact groups, and alarm systems for aloneness run this deep, why does modern life seem almost engineered to trigger that alarm constantly? The honest answer is that modern life didn't design itself around this alarm. It just never accounted for it. For most of human history, genuine solitude, real extended time completely apart from your group, was rare enough that the alarm rarely needed to fire for long. Bands of 30 to 150 people meant you were almost never actually alone. And when you briefly were, someone usually noticed and closed the gap quickly. Now, flip that entirely. A huge number of people today live by themselves, work from home without meaningful daily contact, and can spend entire stretches of a day without a single face-to-face conversation. All while an ancient alarm system, built for an environment where that pattern meant likely death, keeps quietly firing in the background. It doesn't know the difference between actually endangered and just physically distant from people right now. It just knows the conditions match, at least partially, and it responds the only way it knows how. This is part of why loneliness doesn't just feel emotionally unpleasant. Researchers studying long-term social isolation have found it's associated with measurable increases in inflammation, disrupted sleep, and elevated stress hormones. Physical, biological changes, not just a mood. Your body isn't being dramatic when solitude feels heavier than it logically should. It's running the exact program it was built to run, using information that hasn't been updated in a very long time. There's something almost tender buried inside all of this, though, once you really look at it. The fear of being alone isn't a flaw in the system. It's evidence of just how deeply humans evolved to need each other, encoded so early and so completely that it shows up before a baby can even understand language and stays active for the rest of that person's entire life. That twist in your chest when a text goes unanswered isn't your brain malfunctioning. It's an ancient, extremely well-preserved reminder that for almost all of human history, connection wasn't a nice to have. It was the actual difference between living and not. So the next time that tightness shows up, the unread message, the empty apartment, the quiet room, it might be worth pausing before dismissing it as irrational. It's not irrational. It's just old. Very, very old, and still doing exactly the job it was built to do, in a world that mostly stopped needing it to fire quite this often.